The night my sister called me a liar in front of our entire family, I was holding a bank statement that proved she had been stealing from her own son. She looked straight at me and said, "You always have to be the hero, don't you?" Everyone at the table went silent. My nephew, Noah, was sitting beside her. He was 16, and he was staring at the floor like he was terrified of what would happen if he looked up. I should have known something was wrong long before that dinner. 3 weeks earlier, Noah had asked me a question that I couldn't forget. "Aunt Claire, if someone takes money that belongs to you, but they're your family, is it still stealing?" I'd laughed at first. I thought he was talking about something stupid at school. Then he looked at me. He wasn't joking. "Noah, what happened?" He shook his head. "Nothing." That was the answer he'd been giving everyone lately. Nothing. At the time, I didn't realize that nothing was the only safe answer he knew. My name is Claire Bennett. I'm 38, divorced, and I work as an accountant for a small construction company. Numbers have always made sense to me. People don't. Numbers don't smile while they're lying. They don't change their story depending on who's listening. And they don't tell you everything is fine when the numbers clearly say otherwise. That's why I noticed Noah's problem. It started with a birthday card. My mother had given Noah a card containing $500 for his 16th birthday. My sister, Melissa, immediately said she'd put it into his savings account. "He's too young to be carrying that much cash," she explained. Nobody questioned her. Not even Noah. But 2 months later, he came to my apartment. He looked exhausted. He sat on my couch and kept rubbing his thumb against the edge of his phone. I asked him if school was okay. He said yes. Friends? Yes. Sports? Fine. Then I asked, "How's your savings account?" His face changed. Just for a second. But I saw it. "What about it?" "I thought Grandma gave you money for your birthday." He stared at the floor. "Mom's keeping it for me." "How much?" "I don't know." "Have you ever seen the account?" He shook his head. That bothered me. Not because teenagers need access to every dollar they receive, but because Noah had been saving money for years. His mother had always told everyone she was putting it away for college. So I asked him a simple question. "Do you know how much you've saved?" He whispered, "Mom says I don't need to worry about it." That was when my accountant brain switched on. "Did she ever show you a statement?" "No." "Online account?" "No." "Anything?" He shook his head. Then he said something that made me look at him differently. "I think she spent it." I stared at him. "Why do you think that?" "Because she keeps asking me to wait." "Wait for what?" "I don't know." He stood up. "I shouldn't have told you." "Why?" He grabbed his backpack. "Because Mom says you're always trying to turn people against her." And then he left. I didn't call Melissa. Not yet. I knew accusations without evidence would accomplish nothing. So I waited. 2 weeks later, my mother invited the whole family to dinner. Melissa arrived with Noah. He barely touched his food. My father joked about college. My mother asked him what university he wanted to attend. Noah said, "I don't know if I'm going." Melissa immediately interrupted. "Of course you're going." Noah looked at her. She smiled. But there was something cold behind that smile. Then my mother said, "At least the college fund will help." Noah lowered his eyes. I watched him. He looked confused. After dinner, I found him alone in the hallway. "Are you okay?" He nodded. Then he whispered, "Can I talk to you?" "Of course." He looked toward the dining room. "Not here." We went outside. The air was cold. Noah stood beside my car. Then he said, "Mom took me to the bank yesterday." My stomach tightened. "What happened?" "She made me sign something." "What?" "I don't know." "Did you read it?" He shook his head. "She told me it was just paperwork." "What bank?" He told me. I knew the bank, and I knew something else. A 16-year-old could have a custodial account depending on how it was structured. But if Melissa was asking Noah to sign documents concerning his own money, I wanted to know exactly what they were. "Do you have a copy?" "No." "Did you see what you signed?" "Just a page." "What did it say?" He looked terrified. "I saw Mom's name." I asked, "Anything else?" He hesitated. Then, power of attorney. My stomach dropped. "Did you sign a power of attorney?" "I don't know." I looked at him. "Don't sign anything else until someone explains it to you." He nodded. Then he said, "Aunt Claire?" "Yeah?" "If Mom finds out I told you." He didn't finish. He didn't need to. I drove home that night with one thought repeating in my head. Why would a mother need power over money belonging to her 16-year-old son? The next morning, I called the bank. They couldn't discuss Noah's account with me. I understood, so I asked Noah to request a statement himself. He did. 3 days later, he sent me a photograph. I opened it on my phone. Then I stopped breathing. There were deposits, small ones, large ones, birthday money, scholarship money, payments from relatives, a summer job paycheck. Everything had been going into the same account, but there were also withdrawals, hundreds at a time, then thousands, over and over. The total was just under $31,000. I stared at the screen. Noah's entire savings were almost gone, and the withdrawals weren't random. They happened every month. I zoomed in on the transaction descriptions. Most were labeled simply transfer. M. Bennett. Melissa. I called Noah. Did you know about these withdrawals? Silence. No. Did your mother ever tell you she was taking money? No. Do you know what she used it for? Another silence. Then he whispered, she told me she was paying bills. My hands tightened around the phone. Did she ever say the money was yours? She said it was family money. I knew that wasn't true, but I still didn't confront Melissa. Not yet. I needed the complete picture. That evening, Noah sent me another message. Aunt Claire, I found something. I called immediately. He didn't answer. A minute later, another message appeared. It's under my bed. I stared at the screen. Then came another. I think Mom doesn't know I found it. I called again. No answer. 5 minutes passed. Then my phone rang. It was Noah. His voice was barely audible. Claire, I'm here. I found a box. What kind of box? A metal one. What's inside? I don't know everything. Why? Because he stopped. What? I found my name on it. My heart began pounding. What's written on the box? He whispered, Noah, do not open. I sat upright. Where is your mother? Downstairs. Does she know you're talking to me? No. Lock your bedroom door. I heard a click. Then Noah whispered, Aunt Claire. Yes? There are envelopes inside. What's on them? My name. Anything else? He was silent. Then he said, there are bank statements. I closed my eyes. From how far back? I don't know. He started breathing faster. Claire? What? Some of them are for accounts I don't recognize. I felt a chill run through me. Take pictures. I am. Don't move anything. Okay. Then suddenly Noah stopped talking. I heard a door downstairs slam. He whispered, Mom's coming. The call went dead. I stared at my phone. I wanted to drive straight to Melissa's house, but before I could grab my keys, a message appeared. From Noah. Just 4 words. She knows I found it. Then another message arrived. A photograph. It showed the inside of the metal box. Stacks of bank statements. A power of attorney document. Several envelopes. And on top of everything was a handwritten note. I zoomed in. My blood ran cold. The note wasn't written to Noah. It was addressed to my sister. And it said, if Claire ever finds out, we're both finished. For almost a full minute, I stared at the photograph Noah had sent me. There was one sentence on that note. If Claire ever finds out, we're both finished. I couldn't stop thinking about the word both. Who was the other person? And what exactly had my sister been hiding? I called Noah again. Straight to voicemail. I called twice more. Nothing. I grabbed my keys. Before I could leave, my phone rang. Melissa. I answered. Her voice sounded completely normal. Too normal. Where's Noah? A pause. At home. Can I speak to him? He's getting ready for bed. I looked at the photograph still open on my phone. Is he? What does that mean? I just need to talk to him. Melissa sighed. Claire, you're becoming obsessed with this. With what? With Noah's money. I froze. She knew. You've been asking him questions. He's my nephew, and I'm his mother. Her voice became sharper. You need to stay out of this. I looked at the photograph again. Why? Because you don't understand what you're looking at. Then explain it. Silence. I waited. Finally, she said, come over tomorrow. Why not tonight? Because Noah is upset. Why is he upset? Another pause. Then she said, because you keep filling his head with things that aren't true. She hung up. I stood in my apartment for several seconds. Then I opened the photograph again. There were 6 envelopes in the box. 5 had Noah's name. Sabrai. 1 didn't. The 6th envelope was marked Melissa. 2019, I zoomed in. There was another word underneath. Transfer. I barely slept. The next morning, I arrived at Melissa's house at 9. She opened the door wearing a smile. Come in. I stepped inside. Noah wasn't there. Where is he? School. I looked at her. You said he was upset. He is. Then why did you send him to school? Because life doesn't stop because he's confused. I almost laughed. Where's the box? Her smile disappeared. What box? The one under Noah's bed. She stared at me. For the first time, I saw fear. Just for a second. Then it vanished. I don't know what you're talking about. I pulled out my phone. I showed her the photograph. Her face went white. Where did you get that? From Noah. She reached for the phone. I pulled it away. What is this, Melissa? She looked toward the hallway. Claire, you need to leave. No. Please. Who is the other person? She said nothing. The note says we're both finished. Who is we? Her eyes filled with tears. You don't understand. Then make me understand. She sat down. For almost a minute, she didn't speak. Then she whispered, your father. My stomach dropped. What about Dad? He knows. Knows what? She looked at me. Where the money went. I couldn't speak. My father, the man who had always lectured us about responsibility, the man who had taught us to save every penny. He knew about Noah's missing money. How much? Melissa lowered her eyes. Almost $31,000. Where did it go? I needed it. For what? She shook her head. I can't tell you. Then I'll find out myself. I turned toward the door. Claire? I stopped. She whispered, please don't contact the bank. I turned around. Why? Because they'll find everything. What everything? Her face crumbled. The account isn't just Noah's. I stared at her. What does that mean? She reached into a drawer, pulled out a folder, and placed it on the table. Inside was a bank statement, but the account number wasn't Noah's. It belonged to another person. My father. I looked at the transaction history. Transfers had been moving between several accounts. Noah's account, my father's account, Melissa's account, and one account I didn't recognize. The transfers went back almost 7 years. I looked at Melissa. What is this? She shook her head. I can't. Who owns the last account? I don't know. You don't know? I've never met him. Him? She nodded. My stomach tightened. Who is he? I don't know his name. Then how did money get there? She stared at me. Your father arranged it. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. My father has been moving money between accounts? Yes. Why? I told you. I needed help. Help with what? She finally looked at me. I owed someone. Who? She didn't answer. I slammed my hand onto the table. Who did you owe? Her voice broke. Someone who was threatening Noah. Everything stopped. What? He wasn't supposed to know. Who? I don't know his real name. Then how do you know he was threatening Noah? Because he sent me photographs. My heart began racing. What photographs? She opened another folder. Inside were pictures of Noah, leaving school, getting into my car, walking into the baseball field. Standing outside the grocery store, I felt sick. Who took these? I don't know. How long? Months. Why didn't you call the police? She started crying. Because the first time I did, they told me nothing had happened. I stared at her. What did the person want? Money. How much? She whispered, more than I had. And you used Noah's savings. She nodded. I stepped away from the table. You stole your son's money to pay someone who was threatening him. I was trying to protect him. You should have called the police. I was scared. So you involved Dad? She nodded. Why? Because your father said he could make the problem disappear. I stared at her. And did he? She shook her head. No. Then what happened? He made it worse. Before I could ask what she meant, the front door opened. We both froze. My father walked in. He looked at me. Then Melissa. Then the folder on the table. His face changed. Claire? I didn't move. You knew. He closed the door. Knew what? Everything. He looked at Melissa. She started crying. Dad slowly sat down. How much did she tell you? Enough. He rubbed his forehead. This isn't about Noah's money. Then what is it about? He looked at me. The money was being used to keep someone away from him. Who? He didn't answer. Who, Dad? He finally whispered, your ex-husband. My blood ran cold. My ex-husband, Daniel, had been out of our lives for almost 4 years, or so I thought. Daniel? My father nodded. He came back last year. Why didn't I know? Because he told us he would take Noah if we didn't pay him. I stared at my father. That doesn't make sense. It does when you know what he had. What? My father looked toward the folder. Evidence. What evidence? He hesitated. Then he said, evidence that could destroy your sister. I looked at Melissa. She was crying. Destroy her how? Neither of them answered. Then my father pulled a second envelope from his jacket. He placed it on the table. There's something you need to see. I opened it. Inside was a photograph. I recognized the place immediately. It was the hospital where I worked. And standing outside the emergency entrance was Daniel. Beside him was Noah. The photograph was dated 3 months earlier. I stared at it. Noah met Daniel? My father nodded. Without telling you. Why? We don't know. I looked at the photograph again. Something didn't make sense. If Daniel had been threatening Noah, why was Noah standing beside him voluntarily? Then I noticed something in Daniel's hand. A folder, and written across the front were 4 words. Claire Bennett, medical records. My heart stopped. I looked at my father. What does my ex-husband have my medical records for? My father didn't answer. Melissa did. Her voice was barely a whisper. Because Daniel says the money isn't what he's after. I looked at her. Then what does he want? She wiped her tears. He wants you. And at that exact moment, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. 1 message. Ask your father what happened the night your mother died. I stared at the screen. My mother had died 9 years ago, and my father had always told me it was an accident. For the first time, I wondered if that was another lie. I stared at the message on my phone. Ask your father what happened the night your mother died. For 9 years, I had believed my mother died in a car accident. That was the story my father had told me. A wet road. A sharp turn. One terrible mistake. I'd never questioned it. Until that moment. I looked at my father. What happened that night? His face went completely still. Melissa stopped crying. Neither of them answered. That was when I knew. There was something they had never told me. I stood up. Tell me. My father looked exhausted. Claire, this isn't something you should hear like this. Then tell me properly. He looked at the floor. Your mother didn't die in the accident. I felt like the room had tilted. What? The accident happened. Then what are you saying? He took a breath. She was already injured before she got into the car. My heart pounded. How? He didn't answer us. How was she injured? Finally, he whispered, she fell down the basement stairs. I stared at him. Why? She was arguing with someone. Who? Silence. I already knew. Ryan? My father shook his head. No. Then who? He looked at Melissa. She whispered, Daniel. My ex-husband. The man who had supposedly disappeared from our lives years ago. I couldn't understand it. Why would Daniel be at my parents' house? My father closed his eyes. Your mother knew something about him. What? She knew he'd been taking money. From who? He looked at me. From you. I felt my stomach drop. Me? Before you married him. I couldn't breathe. I remembered my mother warning me about Daniel. I thought she simply didn't like him. She'd told me he was hiding something. I'd accused her of trying to ruin my marriage. 2 years later, I stopped speaking to her for nearly 6 months. Then she died, and I spent years regretting it. Now I realized she had been trying to protect me. How much money? My father hesitated. Enough to put him in serious trouble. I looked at Melissa. How did Noah become involved? She shook her head. He wasn't. Then why does Daniel have his photographs? I don't know. I turned back to my father. What happened after Mom fell? He looked toward the window. She was conscious. My throat tightened. What did she say? He hesitated. She told me to call you. Did you? No. Why? Because Daniel was there. I stared at him. Where? In the house. Why didn't you call the police? My father looked ashamed. Because he threatened us. With what? Your medical records. I froze. My medical records? He nodded. Daniel had access to them through someone at the hospital. I suddenly remembered strange things from years ago. Bills I didn't recognize. Medical appointments appearing on insurance statements. Daniel knowing things about my health that I'd never told him. I'd always assumed he was simply paying attention. Now I wondered. What was he doing with my records? We don't know. My father reached for the envelope. That's what he wanted. What? The records. Why? He said they would prove you were mentally unstable. I laughed. It came out bitter and empty. Why would he need that? My father looked at me. Because he wanted control over Noah. I felt sick. Then Melissa spoke. He wanted custody. Daniel wanted Noah? She nodded. After the divorce, he claimed you were unstable. I stared at her. Why didn't you tell me? Because Dad told me not to. I looked at my father. He didn't deny it. I felt betrayed all over again. You let me believe Daniel abandoned us. My father whispered, I thought I was protecting you. No, I shook my head. You were making decisions for me. He looked away. Then I noticed something. The photograph of Daniel outside my hospital. There was a timestamp, 3 months earlier. I zoomed in. He wasn't alone. A woman stood beside him. I recognized her immediately. She worked in the medical records department at my hospital. My stomach tightened. Who is she? My father looked at the photograph. I don't know. Yes, you do. He didn't answer. I turned toward Melissa. Who is she? Melissa whispered, Daniel's sister. That didn't make sense. Daniel had told me his sister lived overseas. I'd never met her. Why was she at my hospital? Nobody answered. I opened the photograph again. Then I noticed something else. Daniel was holding a folder, the same folder I'd seen in the earlier photograph. Claire Bennett Medical Records. I looked at my father. How did Daniel get that? We don't know. You're lying. I swear. I pulled out my phone. I'm calling the hospital. My father stood. Claire, don't. Why? Because if Daniel has someone inside the hospital, he'll know. I stopped. That was exactly what I needed to hear. If Daniel was monitoring me, calling the hospital would warn him. So I changed my plan. I went home. I didn't tell anyone where I was going. I didn't call the hospital. Instead, I logged into my personal computer and checked every medical record request associated with my name. There were 12. I recognized 4. The other 8 had been accessed without my knowledge. The dates were spread across 3 years. I stared at the screen. Then I noticed something. Every unauthorized access happened within 48 hours of a major event in my life. My divorce, my job promotion, my pregnancy, Noah's birth, my mother's death. I felt cold. Someone hadn't been casually looking at my records. Someone had been tracking me. Then I saw the name attached to the most recent access. My hands went numb. It wasn't Daniel. It wasn't his sister. It was someone who had been in my life for years. Someone I trusted. Someone who had attended my mother's funeral. Someone who had sat beside me while I cried. The name was Melissa Bennett, my sister. I stared at the screen. Then my phone rang. Melissa, I answered. She didn't say hello. She whispered, Claire, listen to me. Why did you access my medical records? Silence. Then I didn't have a choice. What does that mean? Daniel made me. Why? Because he had something on me. What? She started crying. The money wasn't for Daniel. My stomach tightened. Then who was it for? She whispered, your mother. I couldn't breathe. My mother died 9 years ago. I know. Then how could the money be for her? Melissa's voice trembled because she left something behind. What? A recording. I froze. What recording? The night she died. My entire body went cold. Where is it? I don't know. Who has it? Melissa didn't answer. Then I heard another voice in the background. A man's voice. Daniel. He said something. I couldn't make out the words. Melissa suddenly whispered, Claire, hang up. Why? He's here. The call ended. I stood frozen in my living room. Then my front door handle moved. Once. Twice. Someone was trying to open it. I backed away. My phone buzzed. A message appeared. You wanted the truth about your mother. Another message followed. Open the door. I stared at the handle. Then came the final message. Or you'll never hear the recording. The door handle moved again. I stood completely still. My phone was still in my hand. Another message appeared. Open the door. I didn't. Instead, I backed toward the kitchen and quietly locked the deadbolt. Then I called 911. I whispered my address. The dispatcher asked whether I could see the person outside. No. Are you alone? I looked toward the hallway. Yes. That wasn't completely true. Someone was outside. And somewhere in the city, my sister was with my ex-husband. The dispatcher told me to stay away from the door. I did. 3 minutes later, I heard a car accelerate away. Police arrived shortly afterward. There was no one outside. But they found something. A small black envelope had been pushed underneath my front door. Inside was a flash drive and a handwritten note. You wanted the recording. I stared at it. The officer asked, Do you know who left this? I shook my head. No. But I knew exactly who wanted me to find it. Daniel. I handed the drive to the police. They photographed it before taking it as evidence. 2 days later, Detective Harris called. I've listened to the recording. My heart started pounding. And there are some things you need to hear. I met him at the station. He played the recording. At first, there was only static. Then my mother's voice, weak, frightened. Please, just leave her alone. A man's voice answered. I recognized it. Daniel, you should have stayed out of it. My mother's voice trembled. She doesn't know. She will. Please, you don't get to decide anymore. Then there was a loud sound. Something fell. My mother screamed. The recording ended. I stared at Detective Harris. That's it? He nodded. That's all we have. No, I shook my head. My mother said something else. What? She said she doesn't know. Detective Harris leaned back. That's important. About what? We don't know. I thought about everything. The money, the medical records, Noah, Daniel, my sister, my mother's death. There was one missing piece. What exactly did my mother know? Detective Harris asked. Did your mother ever mention a secret account? I froze. Why? Because the financial records we've recovered show unusual transfers beginning shortly before her death. How unusual? Over $100,000. I stared at him. Where did it go? We're tracing it. Could it be connected to Noah's money? Possibly. Then his phone rang. He answered. His expression changed. You're sure? He listened, then hung up. We've found the account. Whose? He looked at me. Your mother. My heart stopped. She's been dead 9 years. Exactly. Then who is using it? He pushed a document across the table. The account had been accessed repeatedly. The most recent transaction was only 6 months old. The person accessing it wasn't using my mother's name. They were using an alias. I stared at the alias. M. Bennett. Melissa. My sister. I couldn't believe it. Why would Melissa use Mom's account? Detective Harris didn't answer. Instead, he showed me another document. A transfer. $18,000 from my mother's hidden account to Noah's account. Then, 2 days later, $18,000 withdrawn. The money had moved in circles. My sister wasn't simply stealing Noah's savings. She was moving money through his account to hide where it came from. I suddenly understood why she had been so desperate. Someone had been watching the transactions. Someone knew. And that someone was probably Daniel. But why? Detective Harris asked, Do you know why your sister would be moving your mother's money? No. Do you know what your mother left behind? I thought about the recording. The recording isn't the whole story. What makes you say that? Because my mother said she doesn't know. Who is she? I looked at him. I think she meant me. He nodded. Then we need to find out what you weren't supposed to know. That night, I confronted Melissa. She arrived at my apartment alone. She looked exhausted. I know about Mom's account, I said. She didn't deny it. I know about the medical records. Silence. And I know Daniel has been threatening you. She sat down. Claire, tell me the truth. She looked at me. The truth is ugly. I don't care. She started crying. Mom found out Daniel was stealing from you before your divorce. I know. No. She shook her head. You don't. What don't I know? She found out he wasn't stealing money. I stared at her. Then what? He was transferring something. What? Your identity. I didn't understand. That doesn't make sense. Melissa opened her purse. She pulled out a document. It was an old application. My name was on it, but I had never signed it. The signature looked like mine. What's this? Your mother found it. What is it? A life insurance policy. I stared at the amount. $2.5 million. The beneficiary was Daniel. My hands went numb. When was this created? 3 months before your mother died. I looked at Melissa. Did Daniel take it out? He couldn't. Why? Because he needed your medical records. Suddenly, the pieces began fitting together. The medical records, the insurance policy, the hidden account, my mother's discovery, the threat against Noah. Daniel wasn't trying to get custody of Noah, at least not originally. He had been trying to control me, and my mother had discovered it. Why did Mom die? Melissa's eyes filled with tears. I don't know. You were there. No. She shook her head. Not that night. Then who was? She hesitated. Your father. I felt the same coldness I'd felt before. My father was there? She nodded. He arrived after the accident. Why? Because Mom called him. About Daniel? Yes. What did she tell him? Melissa looked down. She said she had proof. What proof? She said she had found out who was behind the insurance policy. Who? Melissa whispered. Your father. I couldn't move. What? He was the person who signed the original paperwork. No. I saw the document. No, Claire. My father wouldn't do that. He did. I stepped backward. For years, I'd believed my father protected me. So, now I was learning that he had been connected to every secret. The money, the insurance policy, my mother's death, Noah's account, maybe even Daniel. Then my phone rang. Detective Harris. I answered. Claire, where are you? Home. Don't leave. Why? We found the person who accessed your medical records. My heart stopped. Who? We traced the hospital login. Who was it? There was a pause. Then he said, your father. I looked across the room at Melissa. She was crying. And suddenly, I understood why everyone had spent years telling me not to ask questions. Because every answer led back to the same family. My family. Then Detective Harris said something even worse. Claire, there's a second login. Whose? We're tracing it now. Can you tell me where it came from? Yes. Where? He hesitated. Your mother's old house. I froze. That's impossible. Why? Because the house has been empty for 9 years. Detective Harris went silent. Then he said, Claire, what? The login was used tonight. My blood ran cold. Someone is inside that house. I grabbed my coat. Melissa stood up. Where are you going? To find out who. She grabbed my arm. Don't. I pulled away. Why? Her face was terrified. Because the person inside that house, she swallowed, is the reason Mom never told you the truth. I stared at her. Who? Melissa looked toward the window. Then whispered, I think it's Daniel. I drove to my mother's old house with Detective Harris still on the phone. Claire, wait for the police. I can't. Deanne, do not go inside. I slowed the car as I approached the house. Every window was dark. The property had been empty for 9 years, or so I thought. Then I saw it. A light, coming from the basement window. Someone was inside. I parked across the street and waited. 2 police cars arrived less than 3 minutes later. Detective Harris had sent officers ahead. They surrounded the house. I stayed behind them. The front door was unlocked. An officer entered first. Clear. They searched the ground floor. Nothing. Then they reached the basement. A few seconds later, one officer shouted, someone's been here. I followed Detective Harris downstairs. The old basement smelled exactly as I remembered. Dust, wood, and the faint scent of my mother's perfume. On the desk sat a laptop, still running. The screen showed a hospital login page. Someone had been accessing my medical records from this house. But Daniel wasn't there. Neither was my father. The laptop was empty. Whoever had been using it had wiped everything. Then Detective Harris noticed something beneath the desk. A small recorder. He picked it up. There was one audio file, recorded that night. He pressed play. Static filled the room. Then a man's voice. My father's. I told you this had to stop. Another voice answered. Daniel, you should have told Claire years ago. My heart stopped. My father's voice became angry. You promised. I promised nothing. Then came my mother's voice. Weak. Terrified. Please. I covered my mouth. The recording continued. My father said, Claire can never know. Daniel laughed. She already knows enough. Then my mother spoke. If you hurt my daughter, I'll go to the police. There was silence. Then Daniel said, you're too late. The recording ended. I looked at Detective Harris. My father was there. He nodded. And Daniel? I stared at the recorder. But where is my mother? Detective Harris looked toward the basement stairs. According to the original accident report, she left this house alone. I shook my head. That's impossible. Why? Because she was already injured. We searched the basement again. Behind an old cabinet, we found a loose floorboard. Underneath it was a small metal box. Inside was a handwritten letter, my mother's handwriting. The letter was addressed to me. I opened it. My hands were shaking. Claire, if you're reading this, something happened to me before I could tell you the truth. I stopped. My eyes filled with tears. The letter continued. Your father will tell you he was protecting you. Daniel will tell you he was trying to protect himself. Melissa will tell you she had no choice. None of them are telling the whole truth. I looked at Melissa. She was standing behind me, crying. The next line made my heart stop. The money was never the real secret. I kept reading. My mother explained that months before her death, she discovered Daniel was secretly using my identity to create financial accounts and insurance policies. But she had also discovered something worse. My father knew. He had helped Daniel create some of the paperwork. Not because he wanted me dead. Because Daniel had threatened to expose a massive debt my father had secretly accumulated through failed investments. Daniel offered to keep quiet. In exchange, my father helped him access my information. My mother found out. She confronted both men. That was the night she fell down the basement stairs. But the accident wasn't what killed her. The hospital records had been altered. Her injuries had been misclassified, and someone had delayed treatment. My hands began trembling. Who? Detective Harris took the letter. He read the next paragraph. Then he looked at me. Claire? What? He handed it back. I read the final section. Your father didn't kill me. I stopped. The next sentence was underlined. But he knows who did. My entire body went cold. I looked at my father. He wasn't there. Then I understood. He had been lying about one more thing. He hadn't merely known about the night my mother died. He had been protecting the person responsible. I called him. He didn't answer. Again. Nothing. Then a message appeared. I'm sorry. Another. You were never supposed to find the letter. I stared at the screen. Then another message appeared. Meet me at the old bridge. Detective Harris saw the messages. You aren't going. I looked at him. I have to. No. If my father knows who killed my mother, I need to hear it from him. The detective stared at me. Finally, he said, then you're not going alone. 30 minutes later, we arrived at the bridge. My father was standing beside his car. He looked exhausted, older than I'd ever seen him. I stepped toward him. Who killed Mom? He didn't answer. Tell me. He looked at Detective Harris, then at me. It wasn't Daniel. I already knew that. Who? My father closed his eyes. Melissa. I felt like I'd been punched. Behind me, Melissa gasped. No. My father continued. She was there. Melissa started shaking her head. That's not true. You were there when your mother fell. I was 16. My father looked at her. I know. I turned toward Melissa. Is it true? She couldn't look at me. Then she started crying. Mom found out what Dad and Daniel were doing. My throat tightened. What happened? She threatened to tell you. And Melissa covered her face. I went to stop her. I stared at her. You pushed her? No, she screamed. I didn't push her. Silence. I grabbed her. She was crying uncontrollably now. She pulled away and fell. Melissa nodded. She hit the stairs. I closed my eyes. For 9 years, I believed my mother died in a terrible accident, but it had been an accident caused by a family desperate to keep a secret. What happened next? Melissa whispered. Dad told me to leave. And he called Daniel. I looked at my father. Why? Because Daniel knew how to make problems disappear. I felt sick. What did he do? My father finally admitted it. Daniel changed the hospital records. Detective Harris immediately stepped forward. You're saying Daniel interfered with medical records? My father nodded. He made it look like your mother died from complications from the crash. And the money? My father looked at me. Daniel used the insurance policy to pay off the debts. I couldn't believe it. You stole from me. He lowered his head. Yes. You used my identity. Yes. You covered up Mom's death. He didn't answer. He didn't need to. I looked at Melissa. You stole Noah's money to pay Daniel. She nodded. Because he threatened to expose everything. I finally understood the entire chain. Noah's savings weren't the beginning. They were the latest payment in a secret that had lasted nearly a decade. But there was still one question. Where is Daniel? My father looked toward the road. He left. Detective Harris immediately radioed the officers. Within hours, police located Daniel at an airport. He was carrying a passport, several credit cards, and a folder containing copies of my medical records. He never made it onto the plane. The investigation that followed lasted months. Daniel was charged with fraud, identity-related crimes, and evidence tampering. My father cooperated with investigators. Melissa also confessed to everything she knew. She faced consequences for her actions. But Noah's money was recovered. Not all of it, but enough to rebuild the college fund he'd worked for. And most importantly, he finally learned the truth. Not every detail. Not yet. He was still 16, but he knew one thing. None of what happened was his fault. Months later, I stood at my mother's grave with Noah beside me. He placed a small photograph beside the flowers. It was a picture of him and my mother from when he was little. I wish Grandma could see me now, he said. I put my arm around him. She would be proud. He looked at me. Are we okay? I knew what he meant. Our family. I thought about the secrets, the lies, the money, the people who had chosen silence. Then I answered honestly. We're not the family we used to be. He looked disappointed. But maybe that's okay. He smiled slightly. Why? Because now we know what we're worth. That night, I went through the last box of my mother's belongings. At the bottom was one final photograph. It showed my mother holding me as a little girl. On the back, she'd written, "Always choose the truth, even when it costs you." I sat there for a long time. For years, I had thought my family fell apart because one person made one terrible choice. I was wrong. It happened because everyone kept making small choices to protect a lie. One signature, one hidden document, one deleted record, one payment, one lie, until those small choices became a life built on deception. But the moment someone finally refused to participate, the entire thing collapsed. I didn't get revenge on my family. I didn't destroy them. I simply stopped protecting their secrets. And that was enough. Because the greatest thing I recovered wasn't the money. It wasn't justice. It wasn't even the truth about my mother. It was Noah's trust. One evening, months later, he came into my apartment carrying a college application. He put it on the table. I filled it out. I smiled. "Which school?" He grinned. "The one Grandma wanted me to attend." I looked at him. "Are you sure?" He nodded. Then he said, "I want to build something better than what they left us." I hugged him, and for the first time in years, the future didn't feel like something our family had already decided. It felt like ours. Because sometimes the biggest revenge isn't destroying the people who hurt you. Sometimes it's refusing to become them. And sometimes, the person who saves you from a family's darkest secret isn't the strongest person in the room. It's the one who finally decides, "I'm done keeping quiet."